Movie buff specialist Phil and John are back, and we are now up to Captain America's Civil War of this Marvel film review thing we're doing. So far, the Captain Americas are winning my heart, and everything else is dropping the ball. But we'll talk about this one this week. A lot of new characters introduced. We had Spider-Man, which is fun. We had Black Panther, which is fun in this movie. It's terrible because I actually have seen Black Panther and I hate that movie. But good to see this. And then we have Killers of the Flower Moon, a 3.5 hour epic that is it's anti everything Marvel is. And I know that people, Martin Scorsese came out and said that he's tired of the Marvel stuff and he's annoyed with that. That's what people are latching onto now and stuff. And that kind of made him a little bit of a punching bag, which I think is silly. But it is crazy how Killers of the Flower Moon is the exact opposite of everything we've talked about in this series. And I would honestly go as far back, other than Oppenheimer, even Oppenheimer. I would say even the movies released in 2023, it's the complete opposite of any of those. It's not trying to push the pace along and be a movie and do all that. It almost had an Apocalypse Now kind of feel to me of it didn't feel like it was a movie. It felt like it was just a story being told to me the way that it needed to unfold. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Captain America Civil War. John, anything else going on? I mean, we have a week till Halloween, so I don't know if there's been any spooky season movies that have been going on or anything.
I think I'm up to 22 horror movies this month. I'm falling a little behind, but I'll pick it up again by the end of the week. It's fine. I will hit 31 this month, I promise. But I've been watching a lot. I've been revisiting some from my top 100 horror movies, which has been great. I've seen some new ones. I watched Phantasm for the first time this month. That movie is so much fun.
Never saw it.
Oh, if you haven't seen it, it's like 79. It's totally weird, just like one of those weird, like late 70s, early 80s horror movies. So much fun. It's catapulted. It'll definitely be like really high when I revisit my top 100 horror movies.
Yeah. I rewatched Frailty the other night. The Matthew McConaughey movie Bill Paxton directed and stars in. That might be one of the most underrated movies ever. That movie is so damn entertaining and it's so over the top, but it is one of those really fun late 90s, mid 90s, even though it came out in 2001, mid 90s, late 90s, mixing of genres of horror and murder mystery and stuff. It's the God's Hand killer and everything. And that movie is just a good time. It's got its creepy moments. It balances that really well with the action. It gets really into religion. And it has so many twists and turns that all pay off. That is such an underrated movie. I really enjoyed rewatching. I had it in my top 50 horror movies at number 50. And I'd put it there just because it was a movie I remembered enjoying, but I hadn't seen it in years. And I sat down and I watched it the other night and I said, well, it's good that my taste sometimes is right. Sometimes my memory is correct about what I'm actually thinking. Because I really, really, really enjoyed that movie a lot. So if you haven't checked out Frailty, I won't spoil anything, but it is a wild ride and it is so worth your time. I think right now you can rent it on Amazon Prime in the US for like $3.79. It's worth it. It really is. $3.79. Just rent it. I owned it on Blu-ray, so I was able to watch it that way, but it wasn't working in my Blu-ray player. I had to watch it on my PS5. It was very annoying. Very annoying. Weird. Don't know why. But yeah, definitely check that one out if you haven't. John, have you seen Frailty?
I don't think so. If I have, it's been a very long time.
Cool. Don't look into it at all. Don't look into it at all. Just sit down and watch it. And that's my recommendation to everyone. Don't look into it. Just go watch it. Okay.
It's on the list now.
Good. I like to hear that. Okay, let's jump into Killers of the Flower Moon. So 3 hours, 26 minutes. This is going to be an Oscar movie. We will be doing a podcast about this for sure. So I guess I can tease this, and John has like no what's the word? I can't think of what the word is. You don't have any agency in this. So yeah, John and I are gonna be doing an Oscar Best Picture thing again next February, where we watch all the Best Picture winners and then we give each of them their own podcast, but that'll be for patrons. And I've talked to John a little bit about the revamp that my Patreon is going to go through and everything like that. And we're going to start doing Patreon only content, one movie a week where we are going to sit down and we're going to talk about it on the Patreon for $5 patrons. So it's not a way to say, hey, come over here, we need your $5. It's a way to say, if you want to give us $5, you're going to get us talking about another movie. This way, if you're not a Survivor fan and somehow you found us, you can still be excited about becoming a patron. You're not just going to get the Discord. And at that $5 level, you'll get the Discord too. So you come in, talk about the movies, everything like that. But we haven't completely figured out what the topics are going to be. We've tossed around a couple ideas, but that's going to be something we do. And then I think, I don't remember what tier I have it listed at for the best picture breakdown thing. We're going to do that also. And we did that 2 years ago, I want to say it was. And pretty much we just take each movie and we do an own episode dedicated to it. And that'll be separate from this other podcast we're doing. So I think we might do that for the $10 tier, and pretty much the month of February. If you're a $10 tier patron, you'll be getting a whole bunch of episodes and we'll spread them out. But all of that's to say, Killers of the Flower Moon is 1000% going to be one of the movies we talk about. I would be floored if this doesn't get nominated for Best Picture. I don't know. We're going to have a really interesting Best Picture race this year, and we'll talk about that a little bit more now that we've started to see some of these movies trickle out. But everybody, Scorsese, Gladstone, DiCaprio, De Niro, and the movie are all nominated. I mean, they're locked in.
I would imagine so,
Screenplay, locked in. Cinematography, 100% locked in. Like this movie's going to get 14. This movie might get 14 nominations this year.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for it. And I'm really excited that movies like this are still getting made. And it really does come down to a maestro like Martin Scorsese, right, to make it happen. But I'm very happy that a movie like this, $200 million budget, did not make that its opening weekend. But I don't think Apple was expecting that. Apple's trying to get subscriptions out of this movie. And I loved it. What was your take? I've been talking for 7 minutes. What do you got?
This might be my favorite Scorsese film. And I know I'm not the highest on Scorsese, so it's like between this and Goodfellas, but this movie was so well done. Like you said, every single aspect of this movie. Surprisingly, like, this does not feel like a 3.5 hour movie at all.
No.
It's paced so well. There are very like clearly defined arcs that the film takes where it's focusing on things. But you could really just tell Scorsese's passion about this story and like the subject matter. I don't know if they showed it for you, because in Canada they did, but they showed like there's this little like Scorsese welcoming you to the film.
Yeah, they showed that here too.
Yeah. And it's like it's very clear that like this is an important story for him, and he really cares about this subject matter. And it is in every ounce of this film. Every single second, every frame you see. It's just, first off, he's getting phenomenal performances from every single person in the film. There are shots that are just absolutely gorgeous and stunning. These are shots that are going to be talked about for years to come. And the story itself is just incredibly compelling, and it's driven by the characters.
Yeah.
This isn't one of those, like, essentially, this is another, like, mobster movie for Scorsese.
It's a mobster movie set in a Native American town, right? Like that's literally what this movie is. It's a mobster movie that's not about the Italian mafia. That's all that is. It's the only difference in this movie. That first voiceover, and you don't really know what's going on yet, right? Because I tried to not look into this at all. That first voiceover where they're talking about all the people who have died. And how there was no investigation, and you're like, what is going on? And then the last one ends with the woman being shot and the guy picking up the baby and walking away, and it says suicide, and you just see him throw the gun at her. Like, okay, something is going on. And the fact that this movie's 3.5 hours will turn a lot of people off. But I really think it truly needed all 3.5 hours. I never felt the length of this movie. I was so enraptured by this world. It was a mini series. And I think that's the funny thing, right? This movie's a 3.5 hour movie. So people go, oh, that's stupid. But if I said to you, okay, go watch a 4-part series on HBO on a Sunday, almost everybody would say, okay, I'll go do that.
Yeah.
It'd be the same length.
And this film can be broken up the exact same way. You have this like beginning portion, which is Leonardo DiCaprio's character coming and, being acquainted into this town and meeting his future wife and like meeting Lily Gladstone's character and everything. And then you have, you know, all the crime really ramping up and the conspiracy and the everything for the next hour. And then you get an hour of kind of the fallout of it. Or I guess almost an hour and a half of the fallout, really. But
Jesse Plemons steps on screen at the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get an hour and a half of the fallout. I actually do kind of feel like, I guess it's like the second to last half hour is probably the weakest of the film, or at least it has some of the weakest moments of the film. I wouldn't say overall it has some of the strongest moments of the film too, because I think like everything that happens in the jail is incredibly strong.
Yeah.
But every moment Brendan Fraser is on your screen is incredibly bad.
See, I disagree. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just showing the absolute absurdity of everything. I think Brendan Fraser is leaning in so hard to the absurdness of his character, and his character just being this guy who is so pompous and ridiculous, but he's on the side of the white man. So what the hell are they going to do about it? And so he's just so in your face and arrogant. And I think Fraser really leans into that. I was surprised it was Fraser, honestly. But once I got over to the distraction that it was Brendan Fraser, I was like, wait, I kind of got what they were doing with it, which was this guy is a cartoon version of a lawyer because he doesn't even need to be a lawyer. This is just as rigged as the whole Oppenheimer thing, right? It's just funny to see the two different approaches to that same storyline, essentially.
Yeah, that's fair. I just felt like it almost felt too cartoonish, but I see where you're coming from. Like that's the point of it, isn't for it to be cartoonish, and especially when it's contrasted to John Lithgow's lawyer, who does feel like I love John Lithgow in this movie for the little amount he was in it. He did a phenomenal job, just being the straight-laced lawyer who's like, you can't do that. That is tampering with the witness.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I wasn't sure what to expect going into this movie. I knew it was a Scorsese film, so I kind of had an idea of what to expect. I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect this much care to be put into this movie that Scorsese put into it.
That's the thing I think I found most fascinating, and I think people forget how strong Scorsese is with his direction. I think he's taken for granted. Silence, I didn't like that movie, and I'm very open about that. I hate Hugo. I think Hugo's terrible. I love The Wolf of Wall Street. You know, one of the great crime movies ever made. Goodfellas, we rewatched it for this podcast, and both of us were in agreement that we take that movie so for granted. Raging Bull is a masterpiece. So I think people forget just how good Scorsese can be when he's on. And it felt like, see, this is the thing that sets Scorsese apart from a lot of other modern directors, and why I think it's a shame that the era of Martin Scorsese and everybody is almost over. He's 80 years old. You know, he's only got so many movies left in him. He's doing the best he can. But there's almost a feeling of Martin Scorsese understood who he was making this movie. When he made Goodfellas, it was, I'm Martin Scorsese, and I'm going to make a movie about the Italian mob. When he made Taxi Driver, it was, I live in this edgy world in New York, so I have the right to make this movie. And I feel like with this movie, he so badly wanted it to be understood that he knew who he was while making this. And he respected the Osage people so much that he did not want anything else to get in the way. Because, look, I hate this. I think it's totally stupid. I think it's absolutely moronic. But nothing drives me crazy. People nowadays love to say, oh, well, of course a white guy directed that movie. And it's like, okay, but you want the white guys who are directing movies to have more representation in their movies. And then when they do it, there's not an appreciation for it all the time. Every now and then there will be, but most of the time that'll be a big complaint from people. What does Martin Scorsese have the right to tell this story? But the thing is, at this moment, most directors are still white men. So that hasn't changed yet. There's been more other types of directors, but for the most part, it's white men. And I feel like Scorsese was thinking about that criticism as he made this movie, because his handling of the Osage people is, I think, perfection. I think it's absolute perfection.
Absolutely. I don't know how culturally accurate it is or historically accurate it is. But this movie inspires me to find out. And
Exactly.
like, I think that's just something that a lot of these historical fictions don't do. They
Yeah.
don't inspire you to look deeper into the subject matter. But you're right. Like, the Osage people are treated with a lot of respect in here. And while I don't know the accuracies of it, they're never really shown as lesser people in this movie. But the oppression towards them from this colonial attitude is shown. And you can
And
feel it. And you know exactly the point Scorsese is trying to get across here.
And I also think what's amazing is he manages to make them smart while they're also being played. They know
Yeah.
that they're being taken advantage of. They know what's happening to them. They know that the white men are after their money. I mean, Lily Gladstone says it in her first meeting. Somebody wants my money. Like, she says it sarcastically, but she's falling in love with him. And okay, if you haven't seen the movie, do stop listening now and probably tune in a little bit later. It'll be 30 minutes is the safe mark. We won't start talking about Civil War until at least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I need to bring this up. The reveal that DiCaprio is actually the meanest MFer was phenomenally handled, because you really are thinking that he is on her side the whole time, that he's different. And they keep saying, and that's what I think is brilliant about this movie. All of the other characters, all the other sisters are saying, you're just like them. You are them. And in our heads, we're saying, no, he's not. He's Leonardo DiCaprio. He's the main character of the movie. How could he be like them? We like Leonardo DiCaprio. How could he be the bad guy? And that one reveal where they show the private investigator hitting his head for the second time, and then they show DiCaprio, and you're like, wow, they've been right the whole time.
Yeah.
But Lily Gladstone is being blinded by love for this guy because she really thinks he loves him or loves her. And part of me still thinks, and I can't remember any characters' names. I mean, the movie's 3.5 hours long. I said it 9 million times, but I'm just going to keep calling them by their actor names.
Actors, yeah.
Yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio's character might actually love her. He really might.
Oh, I think so.
And I think that complexity is what makes this so fascinating the entire time. In my opinion, Lily Gladstone should win the Oscar. Now, Poor Things hasn't come out yet, and she has announced she's going to put herself in for lead actress. So that's going to be tough against Emma Stone. But Lily Gladstone is ridiculously good in this movie, and it's the subtleties throughout and the way she's handled. But again, that goes back to Scorsese. A lot of people before this movie came out, the complaint, John, I think we even talked about it briefly on this podcast, was it's going to be another white savior movie. This is the furthest thing from that.
No, not at all. It's not a white savior movie at all. And yeah, okay, we have like the FBI, who are a bunch of white guys coming in and stuff,
but they don't save the day, really.
No, they don't, and they don't even get involved without the Osage people advocating for it. Like this, yeah. I think a lot of people probably went into this movie or are looking at this movie thinking it's a white savior movie, and it's not, which is great, mainly because all the white characters are terrible in this movie.
Everybody except John Lithgow.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Alford says here, I mean, I know Jordan saw it twice. He says, okay, so here we go. He says characters' names. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen this movie yet, you're about to be spoiled out the wazoo here. Ernest doesn't love Molly. He just thinks he does. You don't murder your wife's sisters if you love her. I am going to, is there a way to like remove this comment? Whatever. Nothing we can do. I totally agree where he's coming from there. I do agree. But what does he say over and over again in the first act of this movie, to the part where you almost are waiting for him to start twirling his mustache? I love money.
Yep.
I love money. I love money. He keeps saying it. He loves money and he loves women. That's what he says. So I think part of him does love Molly, but he loves her in the way that she's a woman. That's what he loves about her. He loves that she's a woman, but he loves money more. No, Jordan.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say he loves her just because she's a woman. I think he didn't realize he loved her right away until he like started doing this. But I do think what it really comes down to, and you already said it, was that he loves money more.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to, is when it's a choice between Molly and money, he's always going to choose money.
Yeah. Yeah. This movie is such a fun ride, though, because when you start to figure out what's really going on, it's sickening.
Mm-hmm.
It really is sickening. And you start to say, wow, everybody's in on it and there's nothing these people can do. And you really are expecting somebody to help them. And even the way Scorsese handles the FBI, Jesse Plemons is kind of a throwaway character in this, purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of a throwaway. John Lithgow's kind of a throwaway. Brendan Fraser's kind of a throwaway. All these big name actors who start showing up in the last hour and a half of this movie are throwaway characters. They really are. Because this is about De Niro, and this is about DiCaprio, and this is about them getting as much as they can. The fact that when you start finding out Robert De Niro has insurance taken out on these people so that if they die, he gets payouts.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's crazy that that's even a thing. And they all like him. They let him sit in at their tribal meetings so that he's going to go and he's going to speak for them and everything. And it's in his best interest to keep these people alive because it's going to help him. It's so messed up on so many levels, but it is so, I honestly can't believe how expertly handled it was. And I know it's Scorsese, so you expect it, but I can't believe how expertly handled it was to the point where every time one of these moments would happen, my jaw would drop a little bit further. I was like, wow, that's what's really been happening. My worst fears about what would be happening is happening. Jordan's second viewing, it actually was harder to sit through because you contextualize just how evil it all was. It is brutal how they treat these Osage people.
Absolutely. And there are hints in this movie as to exactly how bad it is, but like, I think the thing that really did it for me is when you realize that the banker that Lily Gladstone's character has been going to is the leader of the Ku Klux Klan there.
Yep.
And you're like, wow, they don't stand a chance.
Yep. I know. Because at the beginning, you're thinking she's going to people she can actually confide in, and then you slowly start to realize that's not the case. And what's the deal, right? He's getting her insulin because she has diabetes. That actually is a good thing. She needs the insulin. So he is helping her. But then he's got the corrupt doctors, and they're not just giving her insulin.
No.
And so they're poisoning her at the same time. And the fact that the movie ends on that note, by the way, I love what they did at the end with the talking and the fake whatever.
It's a very good way to give us the postscript on the movie.
I agree.
Without just giving us like title cards.
I agree. But what I was going to say is I love that the last moment of this movie prior to that is, what were you giving me? Just insulin. And we don't get anything else. And he just turns and looks at Jesse Plemons, and then we get the postscripts. The postscript is brilliant. And it shows her victory. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're still thinking like, wow, he's going to bat. He's going to turn in De Niro. I mean, we literally saw this straight out of Goodfellas. De Niro's even the character who's sitting there being turned in. And you think that this is all really going to work out. But it is so much more satisfying that she doesn't take him back in any way, shape, or form. And she just says, what were you giving me? And when he answers and she just shakes her head and walks out of the room, I mean, that's movie making. That's what making a movie should be like. Not just random characters that we've heard of before popping up on screen to laugh and giggle and do whatever. Like, no, that is what movie making is. And it might not make a bunch of money. In fact, it's probably going to lose money. Although I do think that because this is going on Apple and Paramount Plus, this is going to get a lot of subscriptions for people, especially come Oscar season. So it'll make its money back in that way. But it's just powerful. Across the board, it's just powerful.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of it also comes through just in like Scorsese's just the cinematography in this film is gorgeous. There are moments, the use of perspective that Scorsese uses in the film is spectacular. The moments where you have like the straight on shots of Ernest as he's sitting on the stand and explaining what's going on. There are a couple of scenes where you just have like the side by side straight on to it. It's gorgeous. Just like some of like even like the landscape shots of Oklahoma, fantastic, riveting. But I think like there's also the first person perspective shot after Ernest blows up the house.
Yeah.
Like that sequence is just, it's so powerful. Just the decisions Scorsese made and how each scene is shot in this film just adds to the weight of it.
Yeah. Oh, and the whole, we're going on a trip. We're going on a trip.
Yeah.
And then you get and even the way the explosion is shot, it's shot in Leonardo DiCaprio's room where he really doesn't know what's about to happen. And you almost feel like that's going to be a turning point for him where he's going to say, wow, I'm really in with the wrong people, but he doesn't care because he just wants the money. And, you know, even the opening scene of this movie, right, when they're realizing, okay, it's never going to be, or we're not going to raise our children anymore, blah, 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 but we're going to get the money. And then they show all of the Osage people dancing in the oil.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, they're literally dancing in gold. They really are. They're dancing in the thing that made most rich Americans rich. At least if you're one of those families, right, from the 20s, I don't know when the hell it was, but the 20s through the 50s, let's say, you're oil rich. You wanted to buy land and get that. And I love the feeling, okay, obviously it's a messed up statement in the movie, but I love this idea that is presented in this movie of the Osage people didn't do anything to earn this. We should get this, right? I love that that is at the heart of this movie. It is so messed up, but as messed up as it is, there is part of you that can understand with the way the system worked in the 20s, why people felt that way. As messed up as it is, because we found the oil, so we deserve the oil. There's that whole 49ers thing and everything. You know, that's how people felt.
Yeah, and that's what I think adds to the brilliance of this film and the way Scorsese presents it, is because at the heart of its matter, it is really showing you the negative impact of colonialism on these people.
Yeah.
But it's doing it in a way where it presents their logic and it's impossible to view it as the correct way of thinking.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's like the opposite of Birth of a Nation, where Birth of a Nation is, you know, all about the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. And it is showing why the Ku Klux Klan is positive. That's the message of that movie, is the Ku Klux Klan is good. This movie is, you know, the complete opposite of that, where it's look at the birth of the oil barons in America and look at what they did to get there and how disgusting it is.
Yeah.
You know? So when you start looking at this, I just want to bring up some categories real quick and just see what you think based on the movies we've seen right now. Oppenheimer is the favorite to win Best Picture. Killers of the Flower Moon is second. Poor Things is third. Barbie is fourth. I'm going off Gold Derby right now.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, well, it's weak year. The Holdovers, which is an Alexander Payne movie, is 5. Maestro is 6, but obviously that has the criticism of Bradley Cooper with the fake nose, so who knows what that's going to be like. Past Lives is actually 7. The Color Purple is 8, but I don't think that's going to stand. I think that's going to fall apart. So when you talk about all those, and then for Best Director, I'm just looking at this now. It's Nolan, Scorsese, Lanthimos, Gerwig, and then Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest, which is a movie that was the Palme d'Or winner. Best Actress, Lily Gladstone is right behind Emma Stone. Emma Stone's sitting there at number 1. And when you go to Actor, Cillian Murphy is at 1. DiCaprio's at 2. I'm just throwing these out. I know you're not going to remember them all. That's okay.
Yeah, no,
Supporting Actress, there's nobody from this movie, so it doesn't matter. And then Supporting Actor, right now we have Downey Jr. at 1, De Niro at 2, Gosling at 3. And that's not even getting into Ruffalo and Dafoe, who are both in Poor Things, who right now are sitting at 4 and 5. What are we thinking Oscar-wise for this movie? Like, do you think it's gonna get any, or do you think it's gonna be almost like Banshees of Inisherin, where it's gonna feel like it finishes second in everything?
Has Scorsese won Best Director yet?
Yeah, he won for The Departed.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I forgot about The Departed.
Yeah.
I don't think that really changes anything.
Because you haven't grown up against Nolan.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't think Nolan's put in enough time where people would give it to Nolan over Scorsese.
This is going to be a fascinating one because you have Nolan versus Scorsese, and then Lanthimos, who's going to come in as a really beloved director at this point. This will be the second time he's up, and he should have won for The Favorite, but he didn't. And at least for wait, The Favorite was that the Parasite year? No, The Favorite wasn't Parasite.
No, it was the year before. It was the year before.
That was Green Book, right? Green Book beat it. So he should have won director. He doesn't
Yeah.
win director. So you have these people. You have those three people. And then like supporting actor, you get De Niro. This might be the last time they can give him anything. And he was phenomenal in this movie. But you also have Downey
Niro's
Jr.,
performance. No, De Niro's performance in this was so much better than Robert Downey Jr.'s. And like
What
I
about
know
Doc?
everyone really liked Robert Downey Jr.'s, but what about who?
Ryan Gosling.
It's tough. It's really tough to compare Gosling's performance in Barbie to De Niro in this film because
They're so opposite.
They're so opposite. And De Niro in this film is so subtly evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like just pure evil in this movie. It's beautiful. I'm gonna like reference back to this jail scene again when Ernest finds out that his daughter died. De Niro's response to that is impeccable.
Oh, it's amazing. The De Niro character is such a sociopath, and De Niro plays it so well. It's really, really, really crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Cuarón beat Yorgos back in 2018.
Okay, there you go.
That makes sense.
But I think De Niro. I think De Niro's my front runner for supporting right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much Barbie hangs on because it is such a beloved movie, and Gosling might be the only big category they can give it something. It can't win director. Like Greta Gerwig cannot win director based on everything else that's up. It can't win picture based on the other movies that are up. And it won't win actress because it's going to be Emma Stone or it's going to be Lily Gladstone. Lily Gladstone's
so perfect in this film.
She's incredible in this movie. Like, and DiCaprio's phenomenal too. I think Cillian Murphy's going to beat DiCaprio. I think
Cillian Murphy wins it too.
Yeah.
I know DiCaprio's performance is really strong, but it doesn't feel like it grips you, and like it doesn't feel like it almost feels like you're so used to DiCaprio performing at this level, it doesn't feel like anything special.
Yeah. Now here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Will this be, it's the fourth, right? 1, 2, I think this would be the fourth. Will this be the fourth movie to win the Big Four? Which is director, picture, actor, and actress. We have not seen a movie, I think, since Silver Linings Playbook even have the opportunity to win the Big Four.
No. They won't.
Because of Murphy? You think it goes 3 for 4? Maybe. It could go 3 for 4.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I we're so early in the season, it's really hard to predict right now.
That is true.
I haven't been able to see these other movies that are like in contention yet because they haven't been released yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
And Jordan brings up a good point here, and then we're going to move on to Civil War. He says, Gladstone is unbelievable. I think her performance is too subtle for the Oscars to give her the win. It's not showy. She wins the Oscar if she goes in for supporting actress, but she wanted to be lead, and that's fine. I truly believe, though, the one thing you can never underestimate with Hollywood come Oscar season, once a actor or actress gains momentum, they don't lose momentum. And if Lily Gladstone is able to gain the momentum of we want, the diverse win this season, because when you start looking at all the others, there's not many opportunities. So if you start looking into that, she can get a lot of momentum just from those headlines. Yeah. But then also she is so phenomenal that if people actually sit down and watch this movie and sit through the 3.5 hours, I get that it's subtle, but Yorgos makes movies that are polarizing.
Yes.
And I do worry that Emma Stone might end up just being polarizing, whereas Gladstone, there's nothing polarizing about her performance. Like it's not showy, but I don't think anybody can sit down and say she wasn't good in this movie. She was the one who carried me through the movie. I actually thought she was
absolutely 100%.
I know Jordan was saying he loved De Niro, but I actually think Gladstone was the best part of this movie.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think Lily Gladstone's performance in this is immaculate. And I think one of the other things to consider is normally when we're talking about this like 3.5 hour movie, you have to question if the members of the Academy are actually going to watch it. This is a Scorsese film. Everyone's going to watch it. Yeah,
that's true. That is true. And if they don't watch it, they want to be the person who voted for Scorsese to win his last Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm excited, man. This was a great movie. This was a great start to Oscar season. I really, truly believe that because, Oppenheimer and Barbie came out so long ago now. And it felt like we haven't had movies come out that are really in contention in a while. And after watching this, I said, wow. We're moving.
I mean, a lot of these movies have been pushed back, right? A lot of these movies were pushed back because of the strikes, because they don't want to be promoting these movies without the actors involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now when you look at like the next 2 months are kind of getting really crowded when it comes to new releases.
Yeah. Although next week we're doing Five Nights at Freddy's, right? There's nothing else.
Yeah, that's literally the only movie coming out next week, I'm pretty sure.
Fart noise.
It's a spooky movie for Halloween, right?
I guess. I don't know. So I was working at the company that made Willy's Wonderland when Willy's Wonderland came out. So I was working at that company, and I feel like this is the same movie. So we'll see. Just not with
nothing. It will not be as good as Willy's Wonderland. That movie's immaculate.
Yeah, thank you, John. So keep saying it because I worked at that company. But let's move off Killers of the Flower Moon. But anyway, so for anybody who's listening to this now, I know we got 6 listeners or 7 listeners, whatever the heck it is, and then we end up with 100, 200, 300 some. Actually, our iTunes numbers are phenomenal when we put them up. I'm just saying, okay. Like we're talking like phenomenal, like almost on par with what our Survivor numbers get. So thank you to everybody who listens there. But if you're a big movie fan, like I said, come January 1, John, and that's when $5 tier is going to get an extra episode every week. $10 tier during Oscar season will get the Oscar breakdown. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and especially these Oscar breakdowns. This Killers of the Flower Moon conversation should give you a little bit of a taste for what that is. Yes. Now, Jordan just said in the chat here before we move on, the holdover is going to be at my local indie theater this weekend, so I'm seeing that this weekend. That
releases on the 10th.
Yeah,
releases on the 10th. I've looked into it already. I'm already excited for it.
Okay, good. I love Alexander Payne. That trailer did not do it for me. I thought that trailer sucked. Whoever cut that trailer did not do a good job. That's my opinion.
We'll see.
Yeah,
it did. I know Alexander Payne. He really wanted to shoot it like a 70s movie, so it'll be interesting to see what he did with it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Alexander Payne. We talked about The Descendants in our top 100. I mentioned Nebraska a bunch. I love him. When I watched that trailer, I was like, what? That's Alexander Payne. But Paul Giamatti gets Alexander Payne's humor, so that's always a good thing too. We'll see. All right, Captain America: Civil War. We should stop talking Marvel and just talk Captain America, because so far the Captain America movies are 3 for 3 for me. And this was the weakest, easily, out of the first 3, in my opinion. I don't know where you have it, and I'll state my opinion first, so that you have to take what I say and consider it. But for sure. I enjoyed this, and I didn't think I was going to. I thought that it was going to be too cluttered with nonsense, like the Avengers movies have been. I thought the Avengers movies have been so bad. 2 of my bottom 3, the Hulk smushed. I mean, it's an Avengers sandwich with the Hulk in the middle. But this was a fun movie. It really was. And I was honestly a little amazed at how well they introduced all the characters and balanced all of the characters we had seen previously. I was floored by how they handled that. They have not handled that well, in my opinion, in any of the movies. So the fact that they had 15 or 16 named superheroes who were, a bigger deal, I actually thought, well done. And Daniel Bruhl, I think that's Zemo, right? Zemo's a really underrated thing.
Yeah.
I thought Daniel Bruhl played that role perfectly. So well, in fact, that I actually thought it was Wes Bentley for half the movie. That's how good of an actor he was.
Jeez.
I know. It was bad. I was telling Rachel the whole backstory of Wes Bentley and everything. And I'm like, yes, the kid from American Beauty, blah, blah, blah. Can you hear me? I don't know what happened to my camera.
Yeah.
I gotta come back in. Okay. But I was telling her the whole story, and then I'm like, no, it's what is going on?
Yeah.
All right, John, you carry it. I got to figure out what's going on with my camera.
Okay. Yeah, I also really enjoyed this one, and it's been a while since I've seen it. I don't think I've seen it since it was in theaters again, because we're getting into that point where we're at the Marvel movies that I haven't really rewatched that often, unless they're leading into another movie. And I remembered, kind of being upset that this was a third Avengers movie rather than a third Captain America movie. Mm-hmm. And in rewatching this is definitely a Captain America movie.
Definitely.
He
is the main character of this movie.
He was. And I think that's really what makes this so much more successful than the Avengers movies, is the way it focuses on characters is so much more precise, so much more like acute to what's going on. And despite the fact that I have my nitpicks with this, I have a lot of nitpicks with this movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's Cap centric really drives it. You know what's going on. The Russos do a fantastic job with an ensemble. And that's not terribly surprising if you know the Russos' other works. I mean, they're mostly known for ensemble shows, right? Like ensemble comedies. So it's not a surprise that they can still hold this ensemble together. Give everyone enough screen time that you feel satisfied with them. You don't feel like any of the characters are just like a cameo shoehorned in, like we were talking about with Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Instead, you have this compelling storyline that's picking up after the last Captain America movie, which is already an improvement on most of the sequels in this franchise. And it's just working well. It introduces the perfect amount of tension between our known characters, and it gets to the point of what the villain's trying to do.
Yeah, the motivations are so obvious in this movie, which is wild. And I will say, I didn't think it was going to work. I thought it was going to be so cheesy. But the Captain America versus Iron Man thing really did work. Now, I thought it was, I do think that the premise of this movie is a little stupid and a little meta, because at this point, people were talking about, oh, it's another Marvel movie where they're just going to destroy buildings and kill everybody involved. And, that's what they get to. That's the premise of, we need to sign this because we're going to treat you like your weapons, which, cool, that's fine. I just thought it was a little too meta for me, but it's fine. And at the end of the movie, when Captain America is fighting against Iron Man, and Iron Man is fighting because he finds out that the Winter Soldier killed his parents, and Captain America is defending his friend who he knows was being brainwashed and everything. It meant something. It was a fight that meant something. And they're like, Zemo is a villain who is a fun side villain. He's not really the main villain of this movie, which is what's cool about it. I think it's at the end of the movie where it said, so you just wanted everybody to fight with each other or whatever. You just wanted to drive. He didn't want to kill anybody. He wanted them to kill each other. He didn't want to destroy the world. He wanted everybody to kill each other. So I was very into that story. I thought that was handled way better than it really had any business being handled, and way better handled than most of the main storylines are even handled in these movies. So I was all about it. And the motivations when people switch sides, I actually thought made sense. When Black Widow finally decides what she's on, it made sense. When Black Panther decides what he's going to do, it made sense. I was fine with that. So overall, this is my third favorite. So right now, my top 3 Marvel movies are the first Avenger, then the Winter Soldier, then Civil War. That's my top 3. I like the Captain America movies. Everything else, whatever. But that's what I like.
Yeah, I mean, aside from my foray into Thor, which I know you weren't that big of a fan on, these are 3 of my top 4 movies. I do have Winter Soldier above First Avenger, and I do have Civil War further down. I do think this movie has one too many super long action sequence in it.
They have to introduce all the characters. That's all of the new superheroes need to have their action moment. I agree with you. I think it's too much, but that's what they need.
Yeah. Again, there are some weird questions I have about the logic in the world about this. I like that we're playing on Tony's guilt. I don't think it's emphasized quite enough about him creating Ultron led to this, the whole Sokovia thing, because everyone who's like, you caused this in Sokovia, it's actually they kind of prevented it, but
it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, but I see where they're going. I understand the mentality of it all. I have questions about why would Wakanda, a country with a superhero that is its protector, want to create these Sokovia Accords? There are these little logic nitpicks I have. Also, why do we go to Bucharest and there are German police everywhere? Fun fact, Romania, not close to Germany.
Well, it's because Captain America is the hero and he hates Nazis.
Of course. So that's exactly why. Yeah.
That is right? One of those where I did the Danube River cruise this year. And you really realize how far Romania is from Germany very quickly on that cruise. That is a far, far hike. So yes, I do agree with you on that one. That is a little bit.
And it's not even like they started in Germany. They started in Austria, and then they go to Romania, and then they go to Germany. It just didn't make sense. Like
they're going the wrong way.
These little things that don't make sense. There's the point where General Ross tells Tony he has 36 hours to bring in Cap. Is General Ross now like this entire UN governing party that is in charge of the Avengers? Like, there are these little tiny inconsistencies that don't make sense to me, and that takes the movie down for me. But I can overlook most of them because I do think, like, at the root of it, the conflict and like the discussion it's having about what do these super powered people, like, what do these people do, right? Like, who is in charge of them? Again, like, it has that moment where it's like they're an American-based group of supers who are just like going wherever they want.
Mm-hmm.
But like, almost none of the people in the Avengers have superpowers. Most of them just have technology. And like, I do have to question how the UN has like control over an Asgardian god, but you know, like it's these little things where it's like, what is this piece of paper actually going to do in the end? And it's also what gets me a little bit with Zemo's plan in the end is he wants them to fight each other. He wants them to be at odds with each other. But the problem is the Avengers, should a threat large enough come, they're not going to be fighting each other anymore. They're going to unite and overcome their differences to fight that.
That's what we've seen over and over again. I do like the premise of Zemo, like, not being able to kill them, but, you know, and Jordan, you can't kill them, so you put them against each other. I like that, but I do agree with you. You know, the Avengers always seem to put their differences aside. You know, although Captain America needs to defend Bucky because he knows Bucky's not acting on his own way.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing, you're bringing up a good point, is what's this paper really going to do? I think the answer is not much. It's not really going to do much at all. So,
well, Phil, let me tell you, we're going to hear about the Sokovia Accords for the next like 4 movies.
That's fine, and I think it's a plot point, right? It's not actually something that would, you know, it's a way for them to say you broke this accord, you broke the peace. I mean, it's kind of like at this point, whenever there's a war on planet Earth, it's always what wartime laws are you breaking, right? I look at the whole situation in the Middle East right now, and it's just like, it's all these different war laws and stuff that's being broken, but it's like, yeah, I get it, but also when you, like, wartime is when laws are going to be broken a little bit more willy-nilly. And I feel like that's, like, in this movie, it's a plot point because they know it's an easy thing to say, oh, you did this, so now somebody's going to be mad at you, so we can make them be, you know, a villain.
That's a really good point. That's a great point. There was something else I had thought of, and it's gone. It was an actual good point, I promise.
I'm an ass, dude. I just keep talking and talking and talking. I'm the blab king over here.
What was do you know, probably not, but do you know the premise of the original Civil War storyline in the comics?
No.
So the reason why this Civil War doesn't quite work as strongly as the comics, it all goes back down to Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie. When Tony Stark says, I'm Iron Man, it ruins kind of one of the big premises behind the Civil War storyline, which is the anonymity of superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
So in the comics, there's a group of teenage superheroes, the New Avengers, who are chasing a villain, and they're like filming it for like this reality TV show or whatever. And in pursuing him, he blows up a school.
I guess that would lead to what Jordan says. The comic is much darker.
It's a lot darker.
Yeah,
so it blows up a school, which prompts the government to come up with the Superhero Registration Act, where heroes have to reveal their secret identity. And the conflict is then between like that the long argument of superheroes of you have to have a secret identity to protect the ones close to you and the ones you love, versus being able to actually operate and do, like, be a superhero essentially. And that's where the conflict comes from in the comics. I understand them not wanting to do that in the MCU. I understand them not wanting to blow up a school and have a bunch of children.
And especially when these movies were coming out, and I mean, still to this day, you can't be doing that at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, like, a major player in that is, like, the reveal of Spider-Man as Peter Parker is a major plot point in the Civil War storyline. So it's really good that they bring Spider-Man into this movie in the MCU. But how they structure things and make it so that, like, it's really Tony's guilt versus Steve's altruism at the core of this conflict, it just works really well, especially with the performances that Downey Jr. and Evans give us in these movies.
Yeah, it really helps that they are both such good actors in real life outside of these movies. And that really, really, really helps. And Jordan says Captain America was right in the movie and book. To be honest, I just believe Captain America more too. I don't believe Tony. The Tony's guilt storyline is, to me, so overblown in these movies. Of like he's the billionaire with a heart of gold, and I'm like, he's kind of a billionaire as a dick. Like I don't really care. And so I'm not buying his guilt over one mom said something to him. There's plenty of people. I mean, like, that's just being a weak superhero mentally, because I always think about all of the politicians in the world who will be like, because of you, my son died. That politician keeps being a politician. Like, Tony, this one person saying their son died cannot wreck you that much. Get out of here.
But Phil, it's right after he was reminded that Peppers left him.
Yeah, the Pepper thing, man. Oof, that annoys me. But yeah, Captain America's right. Captain America's always right. And that's why they should just keep making Captain America movies and stop making these other superhero movies. They just stop wasting my time. Just keep making Captain America, because I'm in on Captain America. I think Chris Evans is phenomenal. I like the Winter Soldier stuff. I even like the Falcon, even though he's a cornball. I think it's fun. But yeah, I don't know. That's just what I got. I also think it's funny on the poster that they don't line up Wanda and Vision. They put Wanda across from whatever Don Cheadle's character name is, and they put Sebastian Stan across from Vision, when clearly it makes more sense to be like, my number one sidekick, your number one sidekick.
Yeah.
Wanda and Vision across from each other. Sorry, I'm getting
also the sexual tension between those two characters.
Yeah, it totally makes sense that there's a Disney Plus show called WandaVision after watching this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the greatest comic book couples of all time. But
Paul Bettany, I never know how to say his name. We had this whole conversation and when we talked about A Knight's Tale. So if anybody wants to go listen to me try to figure out how to say his last name, there it is. He's such an underrated actor. He really is. He's such an underrated actor.
Yeah, even like he plays this like robot. Like the way he plays Vision is so interesting, because he's this very knowledgeable character, but also this very curious character at the same time. And just the way he acts with his face with this character is so incredible.
I had one complaint. Are you ready? You ready for my nitpick? This is my nitpick.
Yes.
You all ready for this? My nitpick. And I want to see if people agree with me. Comment your comments. When they're having the conversation about the Sokovia Accords, in the background, Paul Bettany, whatever the hell his name is sitting there. Vision is sitting there. And Vision is showing a very emotional response. Why is Vision showing a very emotional response to this conversation being had about the Sokovia Accords? There is no way that a character of his intellect and his higher being and all of that could give two craps about this conversation. And he has the most emotional response out of everybody. That's my nitpick for the movie. Couldn't take it. Almost cried in misery.
It's clearly actually the anguish of the philosophical debate going on within his head at that time.
That's what it was. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Where they go with this, again, it just makes sense. I also love the callback to the disguises from Winter Soldier. When we get Steve with the ball cap and the sunglasses.
Yeah.
And then Sam's there doing it too. Like, is these little details that the Russo brothers keep consistent in their films that makes them more enjoyable.
I agree. That was like a fun. I like that kind of stuff too. I can't give too much credit because I didn't pay that much attention to it, but I do agree with you that all of those little things are cool. Since I don't want to go that much longer though, I do want to talk about Black Panther and Spider-Man intros in this.
Yeah.
Tom Holland and Chadwick Boseman were perfectly cast. Black Panther's
Absolutely.
just a terrible movie, right? Like I actually don't. I like Chadwick Boseman, but I just hated Black Panther. I thought it was such a bad movie. I thought it was just bad.
We have like 5 weeks till we have to talk about it.
Which is so crazy because they hint that it's coming and then it's just not. But Chadwick Boseman's perfectly cast. And Black Panther's a good side character. Black Panther does not need so many movies. Tom Holland is great. Tom Holland lives up to the hype. I love the Tom Holland, boyish wonder that he has going on. I think that is so perfectly done because that is how we would all act if it was like, if there were real life superheroes and that's how we were around them. I mean, think about how people would act if their two favorite sports athletes showed up, or if Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino were in a fight next to us and we were the one who was supposed to break it up. I loved those two castings. So I thought it was really well done. It's good that they finally started to get those types of interesting characters because I'm over Hawkeye. Wanda and Vision cannot be more than what they are. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get that they have their own show and it's a different thing, but if you're making these Marvel movies, Wanda and Vision they don't need to be carrying as much weight as they seemed like they were going to be putting on them. Black Widow is boring. So I think that getting those two in here and getting such good actors to play them really, really helps this movie. Really helps. Even Paul Rudd's small role as Ant-Man in this really works because you're getting really good actors to play characters that have a lot of personality. When the biggest knock you can have on these first 12 Marvel movies is that the characters don't have that much personality. The personality is so forced. And finally, with Black Panther, with Spider-Man, and with Ant-Man, it feels like their personalities are natural. And so it's good that you get the actors to play them who play them, and it really worked for me. So yeah, I didn't think I would compliment this movie as much as I ended up complimenting this movie, but I quite enjoyed this movie. I really did.
Yeah, I agree. It's one that I would go back and watch again. Like you were saying with Ant-Man last time, right? Like if it's on TV, it'll stay on. Yeah, because it's just like it's an enjoyable film, and the fact that it doesn't feel crowded is honestly quite a miracle with how many characters are in this movie.
And it's not that long. It's 2 hours and 27 minutes, which is long, but it feels like it's a movie with how many characters they're introducing and how much they're doing. It could have been longer, and I'm actually kind of proud of them for keeping this under 2.5. Because the credits for these movies are 5 minutes, 6 minutes long themselves.
Yes, they are.
They're absurdly long. So, I would recommend. I look at my list. I'm gonna pull up my list now. These are my top 3. Civil War comes in at 3. I got Guardians at 4 and Iron Man at 5, and then everything else is 2.5 stars or worse. But I officially have 5. I have 5 MCU movies that I like. 5 MCU movies that I would sit down and I did. Well, Iron Man 2 and Ant-Man, I kind of put in that zone of like, if it was on TV, I'd watch it, but I don't necessarily like. It was Iron Man 3 that I like more than Iron Man 2, too, I think. Yeah. But like, those are movies that if they're on, I'll watch them, but they're going to be more background noise. This is a movie that if it was on, I'd pay attention to it. This is still a fun, like you can drink some whiskey or something while you're watching it and fall asleep, or you can be checking your phone to see what's going on in a football game or something. It's not that big of a deal, but I would pay attention to this movie, and that's good. I liked it. I really did. I enjoyed it, and I did not think that I'd be coming out of this series with 5 3-star or better Marvel movies. So the fact that I already have 5 in the first 13, I mean, that means it has to be easily. I'm going to get to 6, right, John? There's no way that I dislike every movie.
I would be shocked if we didn't get a 6th one. It might take a little while, but I would be shocked if we didn't get one.
Yeah, I might never get there just to prove a point, but
do that.
Doctor Strange next, Guardians 2, Homecoming, maybe that'll be it. Maybe Homecoming will be it. Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther will not be it. All that being said,
maybe you'll come around on Black Panther. Maybe
I will
you'll like
not.
it more now that you're more entrenched in the MCU.
I think I'm actually going to like it less because I thought there were
Probably.
so many problems with it from a superhero movie perspective when I watched it the first time. And since I've watched these movies, I feel like everything I didn't like about it is going to be amplified. Like the fight at the end of the movie,
That's
I
fair.
thought was so pointless the first time, and it feels like it's the same thing again. So I don't know. I just remember the
We'll
best
see.
part of that movie being Michael B. Jordan. So we'll see if I still hold true to that.
But next week's Doctor Strange, which is, I'd say it's a different take on a Marvel movie so far.
So it's funny with Doctor Strange because I had abandoned all of these movies post. What was the movie? Post
Iron Man 2?
Avengers.
Right.
And when the Doctor Strange trailer came out, I said, well, that actually looks pretty cool. And I remember when they did the original trailer for it, before I knew it was Doctor Strange, I said, wow, this is like going to be a good movie. And then I saw it was Doctor Strange. And I was like, all right, screw that. So Doctor Strange is one that 7 years ago actually caught my attention. So I'm curious to see how it stands because it did catch my attention when it first came out. And I like anything with Rachel McAdams because
It's got a pretty good cast too. If you look at like the top 5 builds in that movie,
for Benedict Wong, Mads Mikkelsen, Tilda Swinton, Michael Stuhlbarg, Benjamin Bratt, and Benedict Cumberbatch, who I didn't even say. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
It's very good. I'm very interested to see how you feel about that one.
Yes, we're doing that. We're doing Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
Oof. So we'll do those two. Actually, have reviews come out on Five Nights at Freddy's yet? We haven't gotten anything.
I haven't seen anything.
I'm shocked,
thing, right?
Absolutely floored that we haven't gotten reviews 3 days before its release. I'm absolutely floored. Normally, a movie like Five Nights at Freddy's always gets their stuff out early. Oh my god, The Holdovers though is 97% right now at Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a good thing it comes out that week of the 10th because the only other major movie coming out is another MCU movie, and we can't watch that.
Dude, and to be honest, I can't watch that anyway.
Yeah,
that movie
eventually.
That movie looks so bad. So bad. That is the worst trailer for a movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, well, we'll get there.
I hope not. But anyway, so we'll be back next week, back on Wednesday. Man, let me check my calendar because it's November 1. Yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday. We'll be talking. You just said the movie.
Five Nights at Freddy's and Doctor Strange.
Awesome. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. We're going. We're leaving. See ya. Bye-bye. Enjoy your night. Happy Halloween.